Good evening. Welcome to the Southbridge Town Council meeting of Monday, July 15th, 2019. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councillor Adams.
Present.
Councillor Catrona.
Present.
Councillor Daniel.
Present.
Councillor Joban.
Present.
Councillor Lazo.
Present.
Councillor Manna.
Present.
Councillor Marquetti.
Present.
Councillor Nash.
Present.
Councillor Steves.
Present.
All councilors present. Item 3A, consider and accept the special town council minutes of Thursday, June 27th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Council Steves?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was reading through it and I noticed that all of the items after number 12 are screwed up. They're all numbered wrong.
All numbered?
They're all numbered wrong. Attorneys in item number 12 is misspelled. There's a couple of other minor things, but all of the numbers are wrong after 12.
I can't hear you.
I said, but there's a couple of minor things, but all of the numbers are wrong after 12. Because 12 is doubled up, and then there's another one in there that's skipped somewhere, so it ends up being weirdly numbered later on too. So.
Okay. So do you have a number of corrections that you want to forward to the town? Forward them to Yvonne so that they could be reviewed by the recording clerk.
Yep.
And we'll hold on that and postpone it to the next meeting.
Okay.
Without objection? All in favor? Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, thank you. Consider and accept the town council reorg minutes of Monday, July 1st, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Errors, corrections, omissions? Councilor Steves?
Thanks. Items number 6 and 7 should also include that Councilor Manna asked for other nominations but got none, just to clarify that.
Okay. Any further corrections? All those in favor as amended? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Consider and accept the town council minutes of Monday, July 1st, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Correction? Errors, omissions? Councilor Adams?
Enter agenda item number 21 at the bottom where it says Councilor Steves. Steves is spelled wrong. And then last page, which says Scouts, it's under Councilor Form. Councilor Adams, the Scouts were volunteering to look after the monument. It's a World War I monument.
Okay. Anything further?
That'll be it.
Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Just a quick one on first page, agenda item number 6. Council Chair Joanne thanks his fellow councilors, it should read. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? All those in favor as amended? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Subcommittee reports. General Government, Council Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did have a meeting on July 10th. It was fairly lengthy. We had a lengthy discussion about the reappointment of Merrick O'Connell as special counsel, and we will continue that discussion. We're not done with that one yet. And using legal counsel to represent Southbridge in the NEC studying process in Charlton, which I believe is on this agenda item. It's on this agenda. We talked about having an intervention advisory committee, started a discussion of that to discuss key issues surrounding the NEC project. We're not done with that yet. And we briefly talked about the airport fuel farm, which we're not doing that yet either, and the right to farm bylaw, which should be done at the next meeting. We do not have one scheduled yet, but I probably will be scheduling one in the next couple of days.
Thank you. Department of Public Works, there is no report, no meeting. Education and Human Services, Councilor Daniel.
Thank you. We had no meetings and there were none scheduled.
Thank you. Plan and Development, Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, we had a meeting on July 11th, items 23 through 25. Will be discussed this evening. All was voted in favorably, and I do not have anything scheduled, but I will probably in the next couple of days have another one scheduled.
Thank you. Protection of Persons and Property, Councilor Manna.
I had no meetings and no meetings scheduled, but I believe there's going to be a meeting scheduled within the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman's announcements. If you bear with me, I have a number of announcements. So first off, concerts on the Common have been moved to Monday nights. The first one will be scheduled for July 26, 2019. A couple of sponsors that had stepped up. One tonight that we have, generous donation from United Lens and Franklin Realty.
They're Friday night.
That's what I said, Friday nights. Move to Friday nights. Move to Friday nights.
We heard you.
I just read, I said moved to Friday nights. First one scheduled for July 26th. Also, thank you to Julia Farron for stepping up and scheduling these concerts, stepping in as we have the Recreation Director's position vacant. To my fellow councilors, an invitation from Fire Chief Paul Normandin tomorrow at 10 a.m. I know it's late notice, but I just got it on Sunday. Senator Mike Moore, who is the chairman of the Public Safety Committee, will be at the fire station to meet with us to discuss the fire station proposed topic. He invited any councilors that are available that wish to stop by at 10 o'clock to meet with him. Thanks to Chief Normandin and Deputy Chief Hulick, who went to Boston and met with Representative Durant and Senator Fatman a couple weeks ago, had a very good conversation with them about funding. Deputy Chief Hulick went to a number of legislators' offices, speaking to them about possible funding, and he stated that he will continue to knock on any door that he can. So I thank him for stepping up for that, and look forward to working with him. Subcommittee assignments. Did my best to accommodate all the requests of the councilors. Thank you for your input. So with that, and I'll pass this out after, General Government, Councilor Steves will be the chairman, with Councilor Manor and Councilor Lazo. Education and Human Services, the chairman will be Councilor Scott Lazo, joined by Councilor Joseph Catroner and Councilor Adams. Department of Public Works, Councilor Rick Nash will be the chairman, along with Councilor Marchetti and Councilor Steves. Planning and Development, Councilor Adams will again chair that committee, along with Councilor Marchetti, and I've asked Vice Chairman Councilor Daniel to step in as the third member of that committee so that each committee member had only 2 assignments, and it's unbalanced. So Councilor Daniel will be stepping in to that committee. Protection of Persons and Property, Councilor Manor will again chair that, along with Councilors Catroner and Councilor Nash. Curbside Advisory Committee, which is an ad hoc committee of this council, will continue because it was an appointment till 2020, of June 2020, will be Councilor Adams, and Councilor Steves will continue to serve on that committee. And we will keep Councilor Marchetti on that. He was appointed as a citizen member, but he's now council, but he's been working on that committee, so we'll keep Councilor Marchetti on that committee. So a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of things that we have to vet through subcommittees, and I look forward to working with all of you as we get through a robust agenda that we have.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, could I ask you through you if any of the newly elected officials were previously on a subcommittee as a citizen, if they could go to the clerk's office to resign that position? Because they're technically still, till the 30th.
Right.
Or the 31st of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a memo dated July 3rd to the town manager, copied to the town clerk, Matty Bonadias, and as well as myself and Dr. Villar of the Superintendent of Schools, indicating that at the local election, there were 2 positions available for a 3-year seat on the school committee. Only 1 person ran for one of the available seats and won. The other seat was not filled. With that being said, it leaves a vacancy on the school committee. According to the Southbridge Home Rule Charter, Chapter 3, Section 3-2-1, vacancies in the elected town boards established under this charter shall be filled by the town council in joint convention with the remaining member of the respective board within 60 days, unless a regular town election shall occur within 120 days, but only until the next town election. So that memo has gone forward. I note that we don't have anything up on the website requesting people to apply. I'll send that over to the town manager's office to make sure it gets posted. If anybody out there is looking to serve on the school committee, please submit a letter of interest along with a resume to the town manager's office.
I just have a quick question. You can
Okay, to the town manager's office, and then we'll schedule up an interview and meeting with the town school committee to elect a member, and hopefully somebody comes forward. Even though that board has no power through the receivership or the superintendent, I think it's important that community members step up, get a understanding of the school system. There's a lot of talk about the school system out there. There's parents that you see a lot of dialogue. It's your opportunity to step up and at least become part of the solution and talk with the receiver and move the district in the direction that we all want to see it go into. Councilor Steves, you had a question?
Yeah, I did. I was curious, that I know that there were some number, not a huge number, of write-ins for that other vacant school committee seat on the ballot. How come that didn't count as, they weren't elected by write-in?
I have no idea. The town clerk is the official that
Yeah.
handles elections. She's saying that it was not filled, so therefore I go off by what the town clerk has certified as the election results.
Okay.
She's saying there's a vacancy. I would ask, if you have that question, ask her, but she says it's a failure to elect.
Okay.
So therefore, perhaps those people that were write-ins, she contacted and they said no, they had no interest.
Maybe.
It's whatever that is, but she is the official, so we have to do our duty to fill that within 60 days. So let's get that out there, and hopefully somebody will step up. Just as a point of information to the fellow councilors, I received a copy of a letter for the Attorney General open meeting complaint, which was filed with this board. That matter has been closed by the Attorney General's office with no other action taken. So that matter is closed. I did file the letter that was received, the copy of the letter that was sent to me on behalf of the council with the town clerk's office to go with that complaint as the matter is closed. So I spoke about agenda for the council and a lot of work for the subcommittees that we have going forward. Last year, this council had a very aggressive agenda, got a lot of work done, and there's no doubt that this year we're going to step off with a robust agenda moving forward. This past week, I had a meeting with the town manager, with Councilor Daniel in attendance, and we talked about some things about how we're going to move forward. One of the big issues, and I know one of my fellow councilors last year was big on this, Councilor Nash, on getting the goals and objectives done in a timely manner. And last year it was a little delayed, but this year we will stick to the calendar. I think we did a good job this year of getting all what we were supposed to get done in time, such as the evaluation. So now it's time to develop goals and objectives. So with that in mind, per the town manager's contract, it was within the first 2 months of this sitting council to develop those goals and objectives. So we've asked the manager to think about some of the things he wishes to work on, and we need to do the same on our end. We've agreed upon that anything that we have ready for council will be ready by September 19th, with a final vote and adoption at the September 23rd, 2019 meeting. So with that in mind, I think we will probably be scheduling a special town council meeting to start discussing that in a work-type atmosphere on that. A couple of the items that are pending this year that I think we do have to work on. When I say we have a robust agenda, again, that capital improvement plan, which we had a lot of discussion about, we'll work with the town manager on developing that and coming up with or improving on the instrument that the town does have, and working with the town manager, as well as this council has asked, and we need to continue at the forefront, a review of all the pending capital project status that we have out there. It's evident that there are some projects that have been funded throughout the years that perhaps we don't know what the status is, and we need to just take a look at it and clean up where we're at and get a good hold of our next steps. As council may be aware, we have a school maintenance and DPW study that was conducted. That study has pretty much sat on the shelves through no fault of really the council. We have been waiting on the receiver because of the work that the receiver has talked about, but it's really time that we need to take a look at that plan and put it to bed one way or another, to actually review it. So because it does involve Department of Public Works and school and emerge, so what subcommittee do you send that to? Does it go to EHS? Does it go to DBW? Then there's a dialogue. I think the best course of action, at least to start off, is to have a council meeting of the whole to discuss it as a whole council and vet it out and then determine what next steps and action plan that we might have. So that will be coming forward within the next several weeks. And I think that's the best course of action to do that, to get that done. Also, we have the school facility study that was completed. That really needs to be addressed on some of the long-term capital, as well as the reuse of the old high school, and that was a part of that plan. So I think we need to have a discussion about where we go as a town council to set up perhaps a joint committee with the school side, a committee. There's several counselors on this council that have been part of previous studies about use of the buildings. So we'll need to get that dialogue going. I did have a conversation with the assistant superintendent, Margaret Ferran, the other day on my monthly meeting, and we did touch base on these topics. So they're aware of the fact that we will be taking these under advisement. Again, fire station, the building committee. This council needs to meet with the fire station building committee and discuss any selection of a final site and where we're going with funding to move that project along, as well as the pavement study that hopefully we'll get. So right there, we have a very aggressive, very busy agenda on those. And lastly, as we start tonight, we had put before the townspeople the marijuana bylaw and how we were going to address that issue. The town council put it out there to the residents to say, give us a sense of where you want to go. They've spoken. Twice they've said they want recreational marijuana, once with a repeal. So as a council now, we need to do our next steps. But it really has to be a well thought out conversation about how that bylaw is going to look. But that has to be at the forefront right now. We have a topic tonight on the zoning, which is great. We're moving forward with the zoning, but we have to make that decision relatively quickly. So I would anticipate that within the next week or so that we have I hate to do special town council meetings, but I think that's where you have one topic, especially with this marijuana bylaw. Those are special topics that deserve, we'll do it here in the dais and have a conversation, but it really has to be a one item so that we can really talk about all the issues. So I think that would be within the next 2 weeks that we'll set that meeting to put that on an agenda and get that going. So that is all I have for tonight. I think that we will be very busy, and I look forward to working with you all as we get this year going. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I was thinking with regards to the school maintenance and the DPW together, we discussed this before a few years ago with the school committee themselves. So we had a joint meeting with the town council and the school committee. So may I suggest something like that instead of deciding which subcommittee it should go to, or because the school is involved with that too?
Well, I think any meeting would be, yeah, we could certainly call a meeting with the school committee, but it really has to be a council with a receiver because he's the ultimate individual that will
I
make
understand. He would
that
have to
decision.
be there. Yes,
But
I understand.
I think
that.
before we go that route, and your point is well taken, this council first should talk about that report and say, we have this report, we have new councilors that are here.
Mm-hmm.
Council Lazo and myself have talked about previous studies where it was done many years ago that we already had thought we put this issue to bed. So as a council, we should discuss it first, then discuss the next steps on where we're going to go with that.
Okay, thank you.
But your point is well taken, but we will definitely involve the school, but I think the council's first step should be taking a look at that report and discussing it. Council Lazo?
It's the duty of the receiver and the council to make that decision. The receiver took the place of the school committee when you go into receivership. Our charter and bylaws are written that if you do this, because they attempted consolidations before, we had the finance director, one finance director over both, was on town side. And back then the law was the council and the school committee had to agree. The council couldn't overpower the school committee, and the school committee couldn't overpower them. It was jointly. Because we're in receivership, it makes now the receiver and the council to make that decision. And I'm sure, I think as the chairman has said, the discussion has to be, is it good for the town? And that, at that point, you'll make that decision properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. That, Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to start off by congratulating and welcome the new members. I wasn't here for the reorganization meeting. I was on vacation, so I want to welcome you guys and let you know anything I can do to support your efforts. I'm here. As you know, the office is open. I've already invited each of you to come talk to me about any issues, and you're obviously welcome. If you make an appointment, you know that I can take time with you. If you just walk in, I'll do everything I can to meet with you and talk to you as well. But the door's always open. It's my job to try to help you succeed in your effort and goals, and I look forward to doing just that. A couple of things going on. The Concerts on the Green, first, the chairman mentioned it, but I want to thank United Lens. They came through, and later on the agenda is a donation for $5,000 for the Concerts on the Green. And also, Chip Norton and Franklin Realty's donated $3,000. Between those two businesses, they're essentially paying and donating money to fund all the Concerts on the Green. I want to thank them on behalf of the town and the council for their support of this community. The concerts were moved to Friday because Friday night is a more active, engaging night. We're hoping that more people come to them, so we feel pretty good about that. A couple of other things going on, just to let you know. We are, as I think you guys are aware, we're losing one of our employees in the collector's office, so we've been in the process of interviewing candidates for that. The fire chief is also interviewing candidates for the two positions we have open in the fire department. So we have some employment issues going on that we're moving forward with. We also got a recent announcement and memorandum. I want to read it to you. It's from Andrew Pelletier, Director of Inspection Services. It says, Town Manager announcement, the Board of Health wishes to inform the Council and the Town of Southbridge to accommodate temporary shutdowns to retrofit the Auburn and Charleston recycling facilities. Casella will be bringing recycling materials into the Blue Building on the landfill management area property. We expect truck traffic bringing in recycling and therefore removing the product for 2 10 to 15 day periods beginning on July 24th and again on September 13th. All truck routes and hours of operation will be enforced in accordance with the site assignment, the contract, and other agreements. This was, as I understand it, discussed at a Board of Health meeting. There is no permitting requirement for this through the state. Our Director of Inspection Services has had discussions with DEP about this. There's nothing we can do to stop them if they want to utilize this. The facility right now is not being utilized, the Blue Building, so they will be using it for a temporary basis to take care of this. And again, I made sure the Director of Inspection Services were here if there's any questions. But it is for just a couple of week period as they deal with the issue in Charleston and Auburn. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the town manager. I did not receive that. Could you just send it to the councilors?
This was just given to me today, the announcement from the Director of Inspection
Right,
Services.
well, we didn't get it, so could you just
Yeah,
forward it
I'd be
to us
happy
in
to
an
forward it
email?
to all of you, yep.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Marquetti?
Through you, I don't believe the Blue Building is site assigned, at least that's what I have been told by other people in the area who were involved in the whole site assignment.
The Director of Inspection Services here through you, Mr. Chairman. But my understanding is it has been site assigned, is that correct?
Mr. Pelletier?
In 1978 or 1979, a letter from the town manager to the Board of Health requesting that the Coralville property be site assigned for a landfill. It didn't identify borders, but the Blue Building was part of the Coralville farm. So the Board of Health has made a determination that all of the borders of the Coralville farm are included in the site assignment, and that includes the Blue Building.
Thank you.
Well, if I may,
Paul? Yep.
just because somebody received or wrote a letter, that doesn't mean it's site assignment, so I would like to see some further evidence that it is site assigned. I won't, belabor the point, but I would just like to see something that says from either a deed or the Mass DEP that the building is site assigned. That's all. A letter doesn't cut it for me, so thank you.
If I may, the DEP gave a permit to the Blue Building to operate as a C&D facility. That would be a transfer type station and require site assignment. The DEP would not give that permit unless they recognize it as a site assigned piece of property. The formalities of site assignment in 1978 are nothing like they are right now. So I chased that document for 6 months when I first came here. I basically tracked the process that they site assigned in that day, and my recommendation, no, my my thoughts on it are that the entire Coralville property was requested to be site assigned. The only thing that would not be site assigned is that property which was in Charlton at the time. Obviously, Southbridge didn't have authority over any property in Charlton. So all of the Coralville property, and my board is in agreement with this, all of the Coralville property that was requested to be site assigned in Southbridge is considered site assigned by the interpretation of my board with the site assignment.
Councilor Steves?
I guess this is through you to Andy. So what is going to happen to the stuff that they collect up there when their time period runs out for doing this?
They told me they were going to be hauling in for about 2 weeks. I asked if they were going to immediately get rid of it after that. It's going to be stored in the building. So they are going to have Auburn shut down for 2 weeks at the end of this month. They're going to bring it up for 2 weeks, and then immediately thereafter, when Auburn's open again, bring it back out. Then at the end of September into October, they're going to be doing the same thing in Charlestown.
Charlestown. So how much quantity of stuff are we talking here? And would this qualify as far as us getting tonnage, funds from the tonnage?
It's recycling. Recycling is not waste. Our tonnage, our terraform tonnage, if you will, I can't remember the word it's called, but we were getting $6 on waste. Recycling is a commodity. There's no tonnage. DEP also, I talked to Mary Jude at DEP, because it's a commodity, because it's not waste, they don't even issue a permit on this. Basically, they're notified that it's happening and they say, go ahead.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Pelletier. So this is just a holdover. They must be doing maintenance or something on the other buildings, and then they're going to be taking it back out once the maintenance is done?
Because of the market, they need to improve the quality of recycling, so they're basically getting rid of some old equipment and upgrading the equipment. It requires a complete shutdown of the facility. Again, Auburn first, then Charlestown second, and then it's temporary. It's going to be about 2 weeks that they're going to bring it in. We're going to be all over them about the truck traffic, the time, the routes, but it's 2 weeks in, and they said they'll get it out within 1 week.
Thank you, Mr. Pelletier. I don't
Thank
see
you.
any problem with that. Thank you.
Anything further? Councilor Marquette?
Just would like to see the evidence that it's site assigned, that's all. Thank you.
Anything further? All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Presentation swearing in, we have none this evening. Citizens Forum, is anyone wishing to address the town council? Anyone? Last call? Seeing none. Item 9, vote to reappoint Helen Boyle to the Agricultural Commission for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 10, vote to reappoint Amy Faw to the Commission of Disability for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 11, vote to reappoint Joseph Farr to the Commission on Disability for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 12, vote to reappoint John Sypick to the Commission on Disability for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Adams?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, how many are on this commission?
The Disability Commission?
Yep.
I want to say there's 6 or 7. It may very well be 7. The board was recently just filled, maybe 6 months ago. We did the final filling of them. They have been having a hard time getting a quorum, though. A couple of members haven't been showing up, so they are working on it. The chairperson was going to send out letters again encouraging people to attend.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I guess the question of this, are these members, some of those that
Are they
are
showing
not showing up? That were reappointed?
No, I do not believe that that is the case, and the board is relatively new, so even if a couple haven't shown up, it's only been 1 or 2 meetings. This board is only really, I think, been fully in effect maybe 6 months. It's
No.
pretty, it's a little longer than that, maybe
I'm
not
sorry,
much longer.
Mr. Chair, through you, if I may. This board has been around for a few years. However, they have had problems filling the seats or people showing up for the quorums. It's not 6 months.
If I may put through, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The board has been in existence for a long time, but it sat with a bunch of vacancies, not much had happened. the positions were all filled, and I think the last positions got filled about 6 months ago. So she's correct that the board's been here a long time, but we had to re-energize, spirit the board, but even now with the new members, they're finding it difficult. So it has not been active and engaged until finally the last.
So I do know, if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, I do know Mr. Southbridge, and he is involved with that, so he is a good committee member. I know a committee member that was on the board that has moved out of town as of last year, so that was a vacancy there, so.
Okay. Councilor Adams?
Dave.
Councilor Steves, did you have something first?
Oh, just a quick observation that I know Ms. Farr and Mr. Farr, we reappointed those maybe in the past year anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so I know they're recent.
Yep. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I just wanted to see how many actually were on here, because it's three-year seats instead of, it seems to me to be staggered in a way. All right, that's all I have.
All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Vote to reappoint Michael Reno to the planning board for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 14, vote to reappoint, only one time, to reappoint. I must read this agenda like 6 times and missed that. I apologize when I reviewed it. You know? I guess you get conditioned to reading it, you just skip through it. So, vote to reappoint Patricia Sharon to the Southbridge Trail Committee for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Vote to reappoint Lori Dunlevy to the Scholarship Committee for a 1-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. It's not a question on the appointment, it's a question on the scholarship committee itself. Is there a way that we can get information on what is in the scholarship fund and how many scholarships have been handed out through this scholarship fund? I know at one time we were receiving $15,000 a year from Casella, and I don't even know if that money's been handed out in scholarships. So if we could get some information on that, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. I do know, I think there's still 2 vacancies on that, so if anybody wishes to serve on the scholarship committee, please send a letter to, or come to the town manager's office and apply for that. There's always been a vacancy for a long time on that board. Vote to reappoint A.J. Larochelle to the scholarship committee for a 1-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 17, vote to appoint as special counsel the law firm of Merrick O'Connell to represent the town of Southbridge Town Council as interveners in the Northeast Center LLC siting process, EFSB 18-04. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Town Manager.
Just a brief comment, Mr. Chairman. Me and Attorney McKay have been playing phone tag, well, actually email tag about this because I just wanted to make sure that he had no conflict of interest, because he does do some work for the town of Charlton already. He's doing some marijuana work for them. He sent me a note believing that there is no conflict of interest, although that same day somebody was reaching out to his law firm asking him if they might do some work on this issue. So it's one of the things I'm going to talk to him about when he comes later tonight, but I just wanted to let you know we think it's fine, but I need to make sure there's no conflict of interest in this particular issue.
There are other attorneys that work for Merrick O'Connell, though, so, I mean. Councilor Steve?
Yeah, I was going to ask that, is there somebody else who, like in their environment department, that would be able to replace him if he is conflicted out?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, so they have a variety of attorneys,
Yeah.
so it's possible we could use somebody else, but that's a discussion I want to have with David.
Right.
And I'll let the chair know as soon as possible if there's any issue that we have to take care of. But I think we're going to be okay, but until I actually have that formal conversation with Attorney McKay, I just wanted you to be aware that there's a little bit of an issue here that I want to make sure we address.
I do want to thank the councilors that were present at the General Government Subcommittee meeting for the conversation that we had regarding this issue. This is in regards to the LNG facility that is being pushed into the town of Charlton, which sits right on our border, that may impact the town of Southbridge. So we are trying on behalf of the community in the town of Southbridge to protect our interests and our town and our residents for a facility that's being sited right at our border. So this just gives us the ability, not that we're looking to spend a lot of money on legal fees, because certainly that is not our intent. This just allows us as a stakeholder to have a say and be able to monitor this process, and if need be, we can interview and participate in the actual process. So this really is to protect the town of Southbridge and our residents, and nothing more than that. So with that, roll call, Madam Secretary.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 18, vote to accept a $5,000 donation from the United Lens Company to be used for our concert on the Common Summer Series. Is there a motion? So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Again, thank you, United Lens, for the generous donation for the concert on the Common Series. Hopefully, everybody gets out there on Friday night to check out the concerts. I think they have a great group of concerts coming forward. Item 19, vote to transfer $4,000 from Veterans Benefit number 1.945.5771.0.596 to Employer Medicare number 1.910.5175.0.714 to cover payroll costs through June 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Discussion? Councilor Steves.
Yeah, can we have a little bit of an explanation of this? I mean, and secondly, I think 2 points. One is, could we have a little explanation for this? And B, I think since this is the previous year, I think it needs a 2/3 majority. if I'm not mistaken.
So my understanding through the finance director is that there was a shortage in the employer Medicare account as a result of the number of employees that are on staff. It was just slightly under budget to the tune of about $4,000. When she was looking for different places she could have transferred from, she found that the Veterans Benefit hadn't been fully utilized for the year, so she felt that was the best place to do the transfer from that account to put it into this account.
And when did she find out that this was happening? Because I mean, this is
Well, what happens,
the year ended 2 weeks ago, so.
through you, Mr. Chairman, what happens at the end of the year, prior to July 1st, the new year, the last 2.5 months to 3 months, Karen is looking at every account to see if there's going to be areas where there might be overages or shortages.
Right.
So that's where she decides to do transfers at the end of the year to clean up accounts, to balance accounts at the end of the year. So obviously it was in the last month to 2 months that she analyzed this and came to the conclusion of this transfer.
Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the town manager. So this is within the Veterans Department?
Now, what happens is veterans get benefits through the state that are reimbursed by the town.
I understand that.
So yes, that's the
But
account
this is
within
to
the Veterans.
cover employer payroll costs. So this is for, is
No,
this
I
for
think that's-
Mr. Trombley?
It's my understanding that's a
No.
general employer Medicare account. It's not just, has nothing to do with veterans. It's for the town.
It's the entire Medicare.
It's the entire Medicare, yeah. It's not just the town. It's the whole town, not just veterans. Because
Okay,
there's really no veteran employees, so.
okay, thank you.
And to Councilor Steve's question, this is not a last year's bill. This is within the remaining funds from the past fiscal year. So it's not like a unpaid bill. And according to what, I mean, I'll gladly, hopefully it'll pass with 2/3, but you have up until, according to what I believe the finance director explained to me, was up to July 15th to make any transfers within your budget. So I think this goes to the other point of the inability to transfer a certain amount because it's over the threshold that the council has set for transfers. So to have just this one item tonight, as she closed out the books, I know I spoke to her on Thursday evening. They were working very hard to close out the books before she went on vacation. So to only have one item to be transferred as she closed out the books, is pretty commendable within the budgeting process. I look forward to seeing the financial report for the end of the year and that quarter to see what was transferred within departmental budgets to see how they closed out. But it is a normal closing out of the year finance. And I do know she was confident on our side, the town side, that we would close out on a positive balance. So. Any further discussion? I'll do a roll call on this, though, just for the record. Madam Secretary?
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
No.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. We have 3 items that we're going to take up. Are there amendments to previous votes of the town council? The first one, vote 20, vote to amend agenda item number 28 from the May 20th, 2019 town council meeting to add the highlighted language. So the original language was vote to adopt the FY 2020 Town of Southbridge general operating budget per the attached voting document in the amount of $54,061,445. And add the amended portion, provided, however, that the town manager may pursuant to his managerial discretion reallocate up to the greater of $5,000 or 30% of any of the sums specified to and from any of the various line item purposes presented in the town manager's budget report within any department without prior approval of the town council. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Discussion. I'll go with Mr. Lazo. Councilor Lazo, I'm sorry, I apologize. Councilor Lazo.
I talked with some of the councilors. I've got a real tough time with the highlighted portion of the agenda where it says, provided by the town manager may pursuant in his managerial discretion reallocate up to the greater of $5,000 or 30%. I don't have a problem with the $5,000, but the way I'm reading it, of any sum specified, and in talking to the TM, the manager, if there was $100,000, it wouldn't go to council for 30%? Or, as Councilor Mann I talked with said, not greater than 5,000, so it can never go over. I can never understand why, when bylaws are printed, they're not simplified to the $5,000 period. And then you would know, like back in the late 80s, that the manager would spend up to $5,000 transfers. There was a limit, but the limit was a straight number, not all the language that's put in here. That to me confuses me and sends a double message. I'm never a big fan of in the charter where there's a gray area where it's open for interpretation. I think government documents should be direct, so there isn't gray areas, and it's a more simplified decision on what your intent is to let the manager transfer, which I'm not disagreeing that there should be a number that he doesn't have to come back to council, but it should be the smaller of numbers, because the council would be giving up their authority on finance. So, although we vote the budget, those line items are voted in a specific manner, whether it be a cruiser, not capital, operating budget such as telephones. You put so much money in there, and I understand at the end of the year that the budget has to be balanced off with some shortfalls in some stronger accounts that we would transfer, which toward the end of the year, we used to do that every year. I'm just real concerned about the 30%.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I understand what Councilor Lazo is stating. I do recall being in those meetings at General Government when this policy took place and all this discussion took place. Karen Harnoy is the expert on this, and I believe we did get the language from an attorney. So perhaps maybe we should just hold off until Karen comes back and can clarify to all of us in her terms and her knowledge that she has, her expertise, that's her area, and perhaps explain it better to us. It's only 2 weeks. We're holding off and we're just amending it to the policy. So we're not like tabling anything. We're just going to hold off on agenda items number 20, 21, and 22, I would recommend, until Karen can explain it to us better.
Okay, so I agree. And I'll go with Councilor Marquetti's question first, and then I do have the attorney's memo because I do have it with me in my charter information, so.
Okay.
Council Marquetti?
Agenda items number 20, 21, and 22. These agendas contain language approving budget and rate hikes. I have been consistently opposed to those hikes, so I'm going to have to vote no on these three agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the memo that said consideration for town council, and I think this goes to the point of 30%. So there is the language, and it says, this restriction would allow the town manager to reallocate up to 30% of the funds listed for a particular purpose in the town manager's budget message to another purpose within the department. But any amount in excess of the limitation would require approval by the town council. So it is, 30% is the higher limit. So if there's $1 million for salaries, 30% of $1 million, which would be police, fire, all that, so that you could transfer up to $300,000 without coming to council for whatever purpose. That's the way this memo is written. And that it's not applied to the school department, which we all are aware of. So I'll go Council Lazo, then Council Adams, and then Council Mann. Okay?
If there's something that I saw in the past years, is the council giving up some of the authorities, and if it benefits the operations, I understand why councilors do what they do. But the one thing that I wouldn't give up as a councilor is the finance. The buck stops here. And I think when looking at this, I can't vote for this. The 30% threw me off. I thought maybe I was reading it wrong. But the one thing that you do have control over is budget. And if the town is going to sail down a dark road of spending, I want the council to be responsible for the spending, because that was the intent of our charter. When it came to all finances, council was supreme. Recommendations, budgets worked on, I get it. But this is a little bit too much for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Adams?
Oh, no, I'll wait for the vote. Oh, actually, you know what? Thank you, Mr. Chair, real quick. From the other, I know this was approved last year, so is there any guidance from the other councilors that approved or disapproved of this from last year? I know, Councilman, you already said your piece on it, but please.
Councilman, you had the floor next.
I did, thank you. This was discussion, this was brought up because it was, there were transfers within the department that were just being done. And according to the charter, they weren't just supposed to be done, the transfers. Any transfer was to come to the council. So any little transfer, even if you want to spend $5, take $5 out of this line item and put it in this line, that would have had to have come. So we discussed, and the 5,000 number came up, and it's to my recollection that nothing greater than $5,000. Now, I heard you read that memo from the attorney, but I am going to request that we hold off until Ms. Harnois is back so she can explain it to us better. She was quite involved in this with Councilor Clemens at the time. She was the general government chairwoman at that time. So, I mean, this was a hot item of discussion, and it wasn't just the one night. It was several meetings.
Right. Council Steve?
I know if I can follow up with that. Yeah, and obviously we were both part of that subcommittee as well. And one of the things I just want to point out that the policy very clearly states that this is only within a department. It's not between departments.
Right.
You can't be transferring,
Right.
you know, 300 grand from the police to the fire department.
Yeah.
That doesn't go over well. All interdepartmental transfers have to come to us.
Yeah.
I got to admit, I don't remember how we came up with the 30% of any of the sum specified language. I mean, Councilor Mann is correct that it was recommended by the lawyers, as Jack read a few minutes ago. But I think the intention, the intention, as I recall, was for the 5,000 to be the limit. With the idea that, for example, if you had department lines, because most of the department lines in the budget are significantly smaller, that they wouldn't trigger this 30. The 30% would be lower than the $5 grand in most departments. The issue, obviously, is the three really big ones: DPW, fire, police, and it doesn't apply to the schools anyway. So those are the ones that would be really noticeable in this particular case. So I got to admit that when we talked about that was the thought process. And honestly, nobody raised the concern that Scott raised a few minutes ago when we had that discussion.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you. As the current counselors that were here before pointed out, this was a very extensive issue. The 30% reason that came out is because, as Councilor Steves pointed out, there was a lot of transfers. They looked at the history of the accounts and the transfers in the past, and the only 3 line items they ever had this problem with more than the $5,000 was police, fire, and DPW salary accounts. Mostly police and fire because employees were coming and going, so the payroll account would have a lot of extra money in it, and it was backfilled because of the time it took to hire a new police officer. You'd have to pay a lot in overtime. So the big transfers that were occurring was between regular payroll and between the overtime account. That's where you get more than the $30,000 in those 3 lines. DPW, a much lesser extent. Really, police and fire were the 2 big issues, and it was based on the history of the accounts. No other accounts had an issue that was beyond $5,000.
So, before I get to I think that's where I might have an issue with, is the payroll that fire and police, well, especially fire this year, the amount of overtime that has been expended with no explanation to council throughout the year. If we look back at what the budget, when we went through the budget cycle of 100,000, and we're well over 300,000, we just gave department head or the manager ability to transfer that money, and we lose track of it. And then when it goes to the public, and we continue to see this in the public about minimum staff and not enough staff, and continue up until yesterday, that I think it warrants a further discussion about that higher dollar amount. The little amounts, the day-to-day, the smaller accounts, but the council should have some fiscal responsibility as to that larger line item, especially to that turn of 30%. 30% of a $5,000 line item is okay. That's not too bad, but 30% of $1 million salary account, just to be able to just say, yep, go ahead.
Right.
I think I have a lot of displeasure with that. I'll go Councilor Lazo first.
The one thing I agree with the town manager that he has to have leeway in some way with the $5,000 sway. I was at the subcommittee meeting when they discussed that, and the former fire chief turned around when I disagreed. He said, do you want to control postage stamps? And I turned around and I go, no. I said, but if there's a low amount, I tried to explain that the charter is explicit on who controls the finance. As far as moving the money, appropriating the money, it comes down to the council. So for myself, the $5,000 ceiling price, I really don't have a problem with that. And I think that when we all run for office and we say accountability and oversight, and then we get here and we hand over 30% of a line item, even if it's transferred within the budget of the department. I'm not even talking about interdepartmental, which is what we're talking about here, but take it from police and give it to fire. I understand it. Still, the charter is explicit on the buck stops at the council, the buck stops here. So I think what we have to do is reevaluate. If you really want to give the 30%, which you're opening the barn door, it's got nothing to do with this town manager. It's got to do with fiscal responsibility as a government. Thank you.
Thank you. Going back to the alternatives for the town council, there was no indication. So that perhaps Council Manager's point of holding off on this is a great report. I tried to look for the minutes to that meeting. The minutes that are in the standard operating procedure book for this particular standard operating procedure, the only minutes are there were reflective to capital accounts and what a definition of capital, but there was no minutes attached to this relative specific line item. The language that was an alternative for consideration by town council did not have any $5,000 limit. It was 30%. So I'm not sure what the council did at that point. So perhaps if we do, we're not going to stop government by waiting a couple weeks to talk about this and pull the minutes to say, hey, what was the intent of the council? Why did you, when Karen gets back, what did you mean by, was it $5,000 or 30%? What did you mean by that? Because there was a reason they put $5,000 in here. It wasn't in the recommendation by the attorney. So what was the thought process behind the $5,000? So we're not going to stop the operation of the government. So whatever the will of the council is, I will go with. The only reason it's before us is because it was noted that it was inappropriate language during the budget adoption, which was the standard operating procedure, that was to go with any vote, including water and sewer enterprise fund budgets. So, in any event, Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So it did have everything to do with the way the charter is the way you read the charter. Any interdepartmental transfers had to come to the town council. That included postage stamps, Councilor Lazo, like he mentioned. And, you know, it was meant for $5,000, and that was specific. I remember, I don't really, like Councilor Steves mentioned, I really don't remember too much about the 30%, but I know Karen Harnoy, she would. However, we were holding the town manager responsible because he was supposed to report to us monthly. And shame on me for not catching this. Any of it states right here, further, the town manager, in accordance with the town finance director, shall maintain a log of such reallocations and provide a monthly report to the town council. The town manager shall request greater allocations of council through the appropriate subcommittee than to council, or if time sensitive in nature, requested directly with the council chair to be added to the next council agenda. So I haven't seen any monthly reports on any interdepartmental transfers or anything.
So on the agenda item at hand.
I would like to, if I may, I would like to vote
Postpone?
to postpone agenda items number 20, 21, and 22.
I second that.
Okay. Do you want to refer to general government for a discussion before it comes back, or how do you want to go about that?
Up to you.
What
I
was your
think
thought?
if we have
We have Karen at the next meeting.
Karen here, I think she should be able to answer the questions.
So there's a motion and a second. Council Lazo to the motion to
Mr.
postpone.
Chairman, the motion, if you're going back to subcommittee, should be a motion to refer,
No, I understand.
not a motion to postpone. Or to,
So
Yeah.
we'll motion to postpone till Karen gets back, and then we can have a further discussion from there.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second.
I just had a quick
I
comment
second.
that tied back actually to several comments.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Just to clarify for those that are new here, although what Ron mentioned a little while ago about the overtime transfers for police and fire and stuff like that, that's certainly true. In fact, if you've looked at some of the back documents, there were sometimes transfers of $50,000, $60,000 within departments. But the issue real here that was triggering this was actually the fact that there were approximately three $10,000. It was the forklift issue from
Right.
2.5 years
But
ago.
the motion before us right now is a
Yeah.
motion to postpone, so
I'm
I just want to...
clarifying what this was for the people
yeah.
that are new here.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
So the motion to postpone, I would like a date certain, so when's our next meeting? For
Monday,
August?
August 5th.
Motion postponed to August 5th. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Councilor Nash opposed. Item 21,
We just postponed all three of them.
postpone all three?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah,
Okay,
to do all
thank you.
three.
Thank you. Item 23, vote to refer the amendments to the Southbridge zoning bylaws, adding section 8.7, adult use marijuana establishments, moving the current section 8.7 adult-oriented businesses to new section 8.8, back to the plan, and refer back to the planning board to receive public comment at a future public hearing.
so moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So this was brought in front of the Planning Development Subcommittee on July 11th, and it was voted in favor of to send it to the town council and send it back to the planning board for public hearing.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you for the work from the planning board on this issue as we move forward in this new territory, and we'll see where it goes. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Vote to refer the amendments to the Southbridge zoning bylaws, adding section 8.9, regulations of signs, removing existing sign regulations from the general bylaws, section 9-902, and back to the planning board to receive public comment at a future public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So,
Councilor Adams?
Mr. Chair, thank you. again, July 11th, unanimously confirmed or in favor of, send it back up to the town council for further to the planning board for a public hearing. They were just they're trying to update the signs to kind of set up what we're seeing nowadays with the different signs that are popping up all over the place. And they wanted to get that updated. That's it.
Thank you. Council Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I did miss your meeting, Councilor Adams. We did a few years ago, it was huge on signs. And there's been some changes in the laws with the signs. So I'm actually, I'm very happy to see this come forward and go back to the planning board and stuff. So, and I do hope that they'll discuss having one location for the town to just have signs like many other towns do for when they want to advertise things. So I'm looking forward to seeing this along with the marijuana one too. Thank you.
And definitely for the public, we will advertise those dates, make sure that everybody is aware of them, get the message out, and we welcome any participation from the public at those public hearings so that we can get a lot of dialogue, a lot of public comment, so that we can be informed to make the best decision when we pass these bylaws. Councilor Steves?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up something that I brought up during that discussion as well, is that when it comes to the sign bylaw, since it's currently in the general bylaws, we're going to have to repeal it up here. At the same time, we're basically doing the 3 readings to put the new one in the zoning bylaws.
Councilor Adams?
Just for clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I know we discussed that in great detail, and I appreciate Councilor Steves bringing that up, talking about repealing it after the last reading and possible approval.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. I believe there's a change in this, but it goes back to, okay, vote to refer the amendments to the Southbridge General Bylaws, add in section 9-203, wetland protection and conservation, and that should be back to the Conservation Commission to receive public comment at a future public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Adams?
Again, Mr. Chair, this planning development voted in favor to send it back up to town council to go to the Conservation Commission for public hearing. This is a new bylaw. I know the Conservation Commission has worked diligently and really hard on this bylaw itself. There was a lot of discourse that happened that evening. I think out of all 3 of these bylaws, this was the most intense one because we've had quite a few good questions, and I think a lot of those questions Eric has, so he can bring that to the public hearing. We did have, there were some issues from security to people walking on people's property and the rights of private citizens to the rights of the Conservation Commission themselves. So I'm looking forward to seeing that public hearing and seeing some of those questions maybe answered or rectified. But it was a good meeting, and again, in favor of bringing it up here.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Council's Forum. Councilor Marquetti, we're starting on your end today.
All right. So I know that we all ran for council because we wanted to see some improvements in the town of Southbridge, and that's why I ran. And here are some issues that are on my radar. And I did discuss these issues with the town manager and the inspector this week. First of all, blight. Now, blight is an eyesore for residents and visitors in Southbridge. There's a burned-out building downtown Southbridge, and there's debris and garbage, and it's been there for nearly 3 years. Now, the inspector says it's a construction debris. He said the contractor is very good, but slow. So I would suggest that the DPW remove the debris and garbage and send the bill to the slow contractor. Second of all, there's a trench with a pipe sticking out of it on Marie Avenue, which I've been told that the DPW created. I think it's past time that the DPW finished that project. It's right on the curve of Marie Avenue. Also, there's a dangerous scaffolding behind the Flatiron Building on Crane Street. This looks like a disaster waiting to happen. This scaffolding is up, it must be about 50 feet up. It's on blocks. On top of the scaffolding, there's blocks. On top of the blocks, there's a a one-ton jack. If that was to fall, that could do some serious damage. And I think it's, I think if the inspector either issue an order for this to be remedied, or the town manager call the OSHA or our liability insurer. I've also asked for a greater police presence downtown. I see a lot of homelessness down there and drug addicts walking around. I know the police can't solve all the social issues in town, but maybe they could put some of these people in contact with some service agencies, or put these agencies in contact with these people. And finally, I've also asked that the Economic Development Director make a presentation to the Town Council. Occasionally, I thought maybe once a month, maybe quarterly. I'd like to see maybe she could provide us with some information on what she's been doing to try and attract new businesses to town, give us some data on job creation, retention, or losses. We put a lot of money into the Economic Development Department. I'd like to see some action. I'd like to see some results, or maybe we'll have to make some changes. So finally, I just want to say, you know, I'm willing to work with town officials and other councilors in the areas that are concerned to them, but you know, cooperation is a two-way street. And if issues I bring to town officials are not addressed, then you can't expect my support on issues of concern to them. So thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Councilor. And I do know that in prior years there were presentations to the council by various department heads. Perhaps we can get one once per month of different departments to get up to speed in the public, so the public is aware of some of the ongoings that the department does. So it's a point well taken. Kind of got away from it this past year, but we'll see how we can schedule that in, because every department should come up and just say, this is where we're at and this is where we're going. So points are well taken. Thank you, Council. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I want to congratulate Mr. Fotios on his retirement coming up. I believe it's 40 some odd years he's been in business. My wife made sure that I put it on my things to do tonight, and obviously I've seen it on social media, and I wish him nothing but the best. He's been a staple of our community here, and congratulations on the retirement. Concerts on the Common, I want to thank all those involved in getting, from the donors to the individuals that locked on the bands, and that will be happening on Fridays. There was a lot of questions about, sure it's not happening on this day. I had to reconfirm it, it was on Fridays. But so, looking forward to having that. And I believe Ms. Ortiz and her husband, Mr. and Mrs. Ortiz and their husband, have few handball clinics going on here in the next couple weeks. I posted that on my social media page, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Catrona?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just a couple things. It's been probably about 3 years since our last charter review went through, and we had some changes on the charter. How many? 4 years? Okay. We haven't had a bylaw review committee since that last change. So I believe we are due for one. Our charter calls for one after the charter review. So I'm sorry to throw that on your plate.
So Councilor Manna, if I could just respond to that.
Okay.
You were here last year, right?
Yeah.
We announced over and over again for members to step forward for a bylaw review committee. Yep. And not one resident stepped up for the bylaw review committee, so it was on our agenda to do last year. So we had a conversation about how we wanted to go forward. So I'll gladly appoint a bylaw review committee again. I'll put it back out there. We had some conversations about that. So,
if I may, Mr. Chair?
So I didn't mean to introduce.
No, that's okay.
That's okay. It was on the council last year.
I just was, I'm looking at these bylaws, and I'm like thinking about the last bylaw review and all these, changes that we made. But I do have extra time on my hands, so I would be willing to, because I know there is a counselor that is appointed to that committee, and I would be willing to step up for that. I think I would love to actually do that. Okay. So, and as to Mr. Marchetti's concerns about the downtown, I think our police department is doing an excellent job downtown. They can't be everywhere all the time. They are doing an excellent job with the staffing they have. I see a presence there with bicycles. I see a presence there with police vehicles. And, you know, we do have issues in our town, but I cannot say that everyone downtown is on drugs or homeless, even though some of them very well may be. But I just want to put out there that our police department, we're doing the best job they can with the staffing that they have. And also, just to the residents, I know we look after our elderly in the wintertime, and we help shovel and de-ice and stuff, but also it's very important during the summertime, especially when we get the high humidity and the high temperatures, and for those elderly who may not have air conditioning, just to give a knock on the door and just check in on them. And that's all.
Thank you. Councilor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, to dovetail with what Councilor Manager said about the bylaw review committee, I'd be interested in that as well. And if I was thinking if we have an issue of not being able to get 5 citizens to do it, we could also do it as an ad hoc council subcommittee, the way we normally structure subcommittees. Because it doesn't say we can't. We can always appoint subcommittees. So that's just a suggestion. Also, I was curious. I noticed I was driving down Goddard Street today, and the National Grid pavement is starting to sink. You know, where they put in their new pipeline down there, the pavement is actually starting to actually sink in below the levels of the regular pavement. So it might be worth taking a look at to see when they're going to actually finish the work.
I'm sorry, I'm going through the chairman because I heard part of what you said. You're talking, I think, about the United Lens pipeline?
No, I'm talking about Goddard Street,
Goddard
the
Street.
National
Okay.
Grid pipeline that's going on in that neighborhood. I'm sure it's not just that street, but there's several streets that they've been doing work on. And I don't know if that was intended to be final pavement or just temporary pavement for them, but it's certainly starting to like sink in the areas that they were doing work in specifically. So it'd be nice to know when they're going to plan on finish doing the work around town and get the job done. And I remember we had talked to Heather a while back, and I don't know what had happened with Heather trying to push them to pave from curb to curb. I remember she mentioned that at one point, but I don't know where that went.
Yeah, I'm not sure with that, but I do know that when she came before us about those temporary patches,
Right.
they wait a year before they go over them again for the final, for that settling purposes. So
Okay.
perhaps she has a better understanding, but I know that wasn't finished product, that they wait a year before they do that when she came before us.
Okay, because it is definitely settling fairly noticeably.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'll check and get any information I can from Heather.
Okay. Also, I was curious about is there any update on the Wells project? We were just talking to somebody about that today, and have we heard anything from Rich Relic about getting that final round of historic credits and stuff? Because this has been floating around since I was elected.
So, through you, Mr. Chairman, the answer is there is no update. I talked to Rich, and I send Rich emails every once in a while, and it's simply up to the state when they're going to do that last round. So he keeps telling me he's hoping for this fall sometime, but until they give him the word, he's supposed to let me know as soon as they let him know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, and
Plan-
also,
The plan is still the same, is that
Yeah.
as soon as they do the last round, the planning is all done to start doing the construction, but they've got to get that last round approved.
right, and also just to clarify, did he actually prepay the insurance for this year?
Is he what?
Did he prepay the insurance for this year, like we had agreed?
Participating in?
Prepay the insurance
like
for
we
this
agreed
year.
Yeah, his intention, and he has been,
He did.
I'm sorry. The contract, the way the council did it, the council pays it, he repays all of that at closing. That was the agreement.
No, for this year, he
Remember
was
correct.
supposed to
No, for this
repay.
year.
He was
Right.
supposed to prepay. He was
I will-
repaying the
I
stuff
will
from
look at that
previous
tomorrow and
years.
send you an email to make sure that it's taken care of. He has promised me he's paying it, so I'll check into that tomorrow and let you know, but he's agreed to pay it.
Okay. Also, we saw that email that you sent out regarding the Mill Street Bridge project.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us any more details? Because that email really didn't say a whole lot. Why did they close that bridge?
Okay. So Heather said that the state has came in and inspected the bridge.
Yeah, I
and
saw
they
that.
gave her a formal report for that, so she has a copy of that report. There's two different things. One is to do temporary shoring up of that bridge, which is what Heather's looking at now, but in order to do that, she still needs to hire an engineer.
Right.
So that's the first step of it, but then there's a longer-term repair of the bridge that has to be done. The report is available through Heather's department if you'd like to look at it, but she hasn't sent me a copy of it.
Okay. Yeah. Could you have her send it to us?
I'd be happy
Possible?
to.
Thanks. And the last thing is there any update on replacing the rec director permanently?
That is currently, it was already posted and stuff. I don't think they started the preliminary interviews on that yet. I know we got some good quality applicants, but the way it works when we do interviews is there's a first stage where the community director and the HR director and some will do preliminary interviews, and then usually when it gets between the final 3 and 5, we set up interviews with me and we go through them. So I'm not sure if they're in the preliminary stages on that. I know they are with the police, the firemen, and also the collectors, but I'm not sure off the top of my head on the recreation director. I'll check tomorrow and let you know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So just a point of clarification, if I could. So are you stating tonight that the DPW shut down a bridge based on a report, but you have not read the report yet? Is that what you're telling me?
The report was read and reviewed by Heather and Matt. She literally just got the report, I believe, on Friday. She notified me of the report. She explained to me that the state was requiring the bridge to be shut down on a temporary basis, that Monday was the appropriate date. They were satisfied with Monday being the appropriate date. She talked to me about it being temporary, and that she would have to hire an engineer for the first thing. But I have not specifically read the report. I'm relying on the information provided to me by the DPW director, and again, she just got that on Friday.
Thank you. Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. First of all, I appreciate the note about Senator Mike Moore coming to town. Unfortunately, I'm not able to make it, so I'll take some initiative and compose a message through his office, and I'll also do something I have not yet done, but I'll encourage others, if they're interested, to correspond with Senator Fatman and Rep. Durant to stay on this issue to help us find alternatives for funding. Glad he's going to be here. I hope councilors are able to make it and speak up for us. Also want to point out that if councilors have not looked back at the facilities management report and the one especially related to merging schools and DPW, I think the town manager actually would head that to email. I have it in Google Drive. I'm happy to send it to anyone tonight, but I'm going to refresh on that. I think that's a great point to bring it forward in the manner that you prescribed. That's what I'd support. Very pleased to see, too, that Julia's been able to help us put forth the concerts on the Common. I love those. I used to go almost every weekend, and some of those acts are return acts year after year. Low Sugar Kings is by far my favorite, and they're coming on August 2nd, so I'm going to make sure that if it's in my power, I'll be here that Friday night. But what's more, Boston Baked Blues is fantastic at the end of August, and the Island Castaways Band has some local players. They are a fantastic tropical outfit, so make sure you try to make it. I don't think I ever saw much more than 50, 60 people down there, but many councilors have been there, and I'm grateful to see that. So come support it. Thank you to the sponsors, especially United Lens and Mr. Norton. I want to make a quick point that I didn't speak up during the discussion on the transfers, and there's good reason. You don't need to stoke fires. You know what? We did enough of that in the past trying to bring that forward, but I will guarantee this council that it was in our, with our best of intentions to bring this forth in such a way that the council did not forfeit or relinquish control of transfers. I'll guarantee you that much, but I can't point back myself as to why we had the statement about 30%. I remember the conversations. I remember working on this with other councilors sitting and past, and I wasn't going to support tonight a postponement, not because I'm really against further discussion, but we've had since June 28th, according to the memo that Karen Harnoy sent to the town manager. Could have brought this to subcommittee if we needed, or at least had some advance notice, and I just don't see any reason. It was a policy or a procedure that was drafted. It's within what was drafted, and while others can sit here and say, well, geez, you don't know what you're voting on, I was part of that process. We did it for the right reasons. I have no doubt about that, regardless of how we're interpreting it tonight. Councilor Marchetti makes a great point about economic development, if you will, and I certainly am hoping to see some results this year with the marketing video that we've been asking for and seeing it actually spread like wildfire on YouTube and other avenues and outlets. You know, we've invested a lot of time and energy and resources, and I'll give accolades where they're due, and Councilor Adams pushed a hard agenda this year, planning and development, and I'm glad to see that continuing. By the same token, we have a good, aggressive group of councilors here. Lots of good luck to everybody, and that's all for tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Nash. Councilor Lazo.
Yes, I would just like to apologize to Monique Manna, because when I was congratulating all the councilors last week, I forgot Monique Manna as far as being elected in the same election as the rest of the councilors. So I'd like to congratulate you. I'm sorry about that. was an oversight. You know, it might have been what we call a senior moment once you break 60. The Mill Street Bridge, I'm very familiar with that. I got a phone call 8 o'clock this morning that the bridge would be closed. I do have a business that is on Mill Street, and I'm on the wrong side of the bridge. But what I'm concerned about are the businesses on the other side of the bridge. The temporary shutdown, we'll all work together, we'll make it work. But I got a call from some of the businesses in the mill. The tractor trailers that usually come in, they were asking for one-side parking on Canal Street. Because if you have two-side parking on Canal, it narrows the tractor trailers from coming in. And then once they get off of Canal, they find they're on Mill and there's no parking, so they can make the swing into the mill. We have businesses like Abacus Liquors. We have Southbridge, I'm drawing blanks, but the Radiator gas tank place, they have massive deliveries with tractor trailers, and the big concern was the narrowing of Canal. Normally it's not an issue, but it is now with the bridge closed. I think if we could take a look at that, I think we could help some of the businesses on their deliveries. And we will work hand in hand as businesses with the town of Southbridge on whatever the solutions are to the intersection. My problem is I'm on the other side of the one-way where you drive into the lights. I don't know if there's going to be a temporary red light because you can't see the red or the green from here. Right now it's turned right only, and that's fine, but if somebody is used to the green light go, you're going to see green light, but you won't see it from the Mill Street side. But we'll talk about it, we'll work on it, Tim. I'm sure we'll work our way through it. Just a quick comment on policing. I don't know who called who, or if it's just to commend the chief. It's nice to see the beat cop down on Main Street, talking to people, going into businesses, and then the bike cop at the same time. It seems like you see a lot of blue around, and I just noticed it in the last week that maybe they've always been there, but seems like the visibility in the past week has gotten better, and I commend whomever is responsible for that. As far as the fire station and the meeting tomorrow, I'm going to try and make that. Michael Moore is a very influential senator in Boston, being the chairman of that committee, and I know him personally. I mean, he's a man that usually delivers. So I'm looking forward to seeing my old friend. Moving on to one other issue. After I was elected, I was forwarded a small gift. I want to present, not present it, but it's a replica of Harry Truman's placard on his desk. And I think it's so appropriate. Being a very moderate to conservative Democrat, I think that Harry Truman was one of my idols as far as how he handled his presidency. And he was from Missouri, and being from there was the show me state, which I always had a lot of respect and honor, and I have a lot of pictures of the guy. But I was presented this, and I want to put it along my plaque. The buck stops here. And to all councilors and department heads and everything, this is where the budget is controlled, in councilor's realm. This was so appropriate when it was given to me. I don't know if it's a sarcastic gift, but I really enjoyed receiving it from a friend, and I want to extend that philosophy in our day-to-day business. I know a lot of councils up here already believe in this, and I just want to leave it up as a reminder when we do business that we do it in a very fiscally responsible manner and work forward. I really enjoy the personalities on this council and the councilors that are here. You're strong, you're direct, and I like the makeup. It's going to be aggressive, and then not afraid to roll your sleeves up and do the work. We are going to disagree, and we have the right to disagree, but we don't have to hate each other. But we can do the good fight and still work forward through this, find the common consensus in the middle of the table, and make it better for the town of Southbridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I move to Council Daniel, one more thing to the town manager. If you could reflect to the Director of Inspections to go to Councilor Marquette's point about blight and trash. I've noticed on the corner of Hamilton and Main, right where that barber shop is, there's a dumpster there with no fencing in the front, overflowing. There's usually mattresses and everything. And I don't know what the regulations are, but if you can refer that to the health department to take a look at it. It's when you take the left on Hamilton Street, the first building right on the corner, there's a dumpster right there. Always, it just doesn't look good. To the point about improving downtown and everything. My son, who's in the military, came home for 4th of July and said, "Hey, Dad, I really like the signs downtown." He said, "Really, the downtown looked great. It was great to see the colors." We took some heat on the public social media saying, "Why would you waste the money?" It was grant money. So I commend the economic team, the plan and development team that worked on that, because for somebody to come back to town that's been gone for a number of months, to see that, and I think that's a vibe that I've gotten from a few different people, that there was a different vibe in town, that it seemed like we were starting to turn the corner. So together, I think we can make that next step to move it forward. So thank you to that economic team. And these little conversations about blight here, and that's the conversations that we should have to improve the quality of life in town with police. We did a great job with our police department, giving them 2 police officers, the fire department increasing their staffing, public safety, roads. Let's continue that work. So thank you. Mr. Manager?
Just one comment. Councilor McCready did come talk to me, and I brought him down, and we talked with Andy about the blight issues that he brought forward and to address them, and particularly the staging with the, whatever it is, the lift or whatever on the staging. So we did have that. I do want to point out that, councilors, I would appreciate it, if you hear of these things, these blight issues, you get residents' concerns about these, please email me, because sometimes it's funny. I'll pick up things on Facebook that nobody ever calls me and tells me about. So if you see it, I'd appreciate you shoot me a quick email so I can address it as soon as possible. I'll take care of the chairman's request of the dumpster at Hamilton, but unless I know about it and I can't drive everywhere in town, it's hard for me to do. So please, appreciate any help you can with that area.
No slight to you. I just saw it today,
No, that's good.
and he reminded me when he said that on that area. Councilor Lazo, you have one more thing?
One quick second. I think this council will inform you at all times of what's going on in Southbridge.
You think?
I have the confidence in that.
Thank you. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to congratulate the Greek Church for a wonderful celebration that they had yesterday. Their annual picnic was held under beautiful skies. I was told that God is Greek because the sky was blue and white, and that's the Greek flag. So I learned something new about geography, and I just want to say that they really did a wonderful job. The lamb was excellent. It was a good time all the way around. I'd like to just speak up a little bit about the Ruth Wells Center for Performing Arts. They're doing a summer camp for children. This is the second week they're doing it. And I think it's something nice that's being done for the kids, and it's not just the same old in terms of summer activities. So I'd like to give them kudos and a shout out for what they're doing, and also to say that I believe on Sunday at 6 p.m. they're having an art show, so the kids who were working last week and this week will be able to produce their works, and I think it'd be something very nice for the community to get out and support. Lastly, I'd just like to be a little redundant and say that we do have many committee vacancies, not just the bylaw committee, but a number of other committees in town that do have openings. There will probably be openings on the town council subcommittees as well for citizen members. We were very fortunate last year that the subcommittees were filled up with citizens, but we're going to need people again this year, and also the other committees. The town runs best when the town is being run by its citizens. And this is the time, this is the place, this is the area that you citizens can get your say. You don't need to be elected, but you do need to be appointed. And I recommend highly that you get to the town manager's office, find out what vacancies there are. I know that some of the councils have already published lists of what the vacancies are, so you can look it up on social media, or you can get a hold of the town manager's office, let them know that you're interested, and we'd like to have you aboard. The more the merrier. That's all I have at this point. The next regularly scheduled council meeting is for Monday, August 5th at 7 p.m. here in council chambers.
Thank you, Councilor. Item 28, vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to conduct strategy session with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and this chair so declares. The bargaining units which we will be discussing is the Southbridge Police Association, Local 153, Massachusetts Coalition of Police, and the International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO, Logo 2154. The second reason for going into executive session, Section 21, Section A3, to conduct strategy session with respect to litigation, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the public body, and this chair so declares, in the matter of the Toxics Action Center Incorporated et al. Versus Casella Waste Systems Incorporated et al., U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts, case number 417-CV-40089-TASH. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes. This council may reconvene in open session for the purposes of ratification of any agreement pursuant to what happens in the executive session. Thank you. Council will reconvene in open session.
Oh, you do? There we go.
So this council is reconvened at 11:17 PM. Appropriation order of the town council. Motion of, you need one more? No, you roll call out of executive session, then you just reconvene in open session. Huh? Voice vote. All present for, voice vote on open session?
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, roll call open
Okay.
session, back in open session.
Counselor Adams?
Present.
Counselor Catrona?
Present.
Counselor Daniel?
Present.
Counselor Jovan?
Present.
Counselor Lazo?
Present.
Counselor Manna?
Present.
Counselor Marquetti?
Present.
Counselor Nash?
Present.
Counselor Steves?
Present.
Oh, okay. So I just signed these?
No, I'm sorry, I thought this was appropriation, this is not the appropriation.
No, this is vote.
I'm sorry, this is, we need the appropriation order.
I have them, that's right here. Okay. Appropriation, number 30, appropriation order of the town council. Motion that the town council vote to appropriate the amount of $3,500 for fiscal year 2019 to 2020 for the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Southbridge and the Southbridge Police Association, Mass Coalition of Police, Local 153, for the period of July 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2022, within the Southbridge Police Department's uniform allowance account, account number 1.210.5192, to cover the following collective bargaining costs: $100 increase in the uniform allowance of 35 officers, $3,500. Total appropriation amount, $3,500. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I'm going to speak on general.
Huh?
I'm going to just speak really quick on both at once, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I just wanted to say that this is the result of contract negotiations between the police union and the town side of government and the town council. And I think that the contract is fair to all parties involved. You're looking at the fiscal appropriations for this. I just wanted to thank the police chief for his part in the negotiations, the finance director, the treasurer collector, and the HR director for all the hard work in joining on our team in this negotiations. And that's all, Mr. Chairman. That's the only comments for both items.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Motion carries. Appropriation order of the town council. Motion that the town council vote to appropriate the amount of $52,000 for the fiscal year 2019-2020 for the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Southbridge and the Southbridge Police Association, Mass Coalition of Police, Local 153, for the period of July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2022, within the Southbridge Police Department salary account number 1.210.5110 to cover the following collective bargaining costs: a 2% base wage increase of $47,000, a field training officer stipend of $2 per hour for $5,000, the total appropriation amount for $52,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Discussion. Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Council. Thank you for the late hour, Council. A lot of work gotten done in the last 3 hours in executive session, so I appreciate all the time that you take for this. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councilors.